to have a political binding commitment that could later become legally, of course, but we think that several international actors are not really ready to make a complete legally binding commitment.
Even without a legally binding treaty in Copenhagen, the EU Commission wants concrete results, like agreeing on financing climate control in developing countries.
This agreement must include numbers on both finance and on mitigation.
The EU is committed to a 20% unilateral reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2020.
Economic relations are taking center stage on the third day of U.S. President Obama's visit to China. On Monday, Obama stretched China's global importance during a meeting with President Hu Jintao in Beijing. The president said that China and the United States must work together to solve global problems such as climate change. Speaking in a town hall meeting in Shanghai earlier, Obama did not hold back and emphasized the universal nature of human rights. NATO intends to withdraw from parts of Afghanistan next year and hand over security in those areas to the Afghan army. That's the plan NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen presented to EU foreign and defense ministers in Brussels on Monday. Alliance officials say the exact areas in Afghanistan still have to be determined. German Defense Minister Kai-Tod Gutenberg, who recently visited Bundeswehr troops in Afghanistan, said he hoped the German army could then hand over control of the north of the country. That's one for Business Now with Ariana.
Thanks, Heather. General Motors says it lost $1.15 billion since emerging from bankruptcy in July. It also says improving market conditions would allow it to begin repaying government loans sooner rather than later. Announcing the figures, the company's chief executive was also confident about the profit outlook after trimming billions in costs.
Of the entire leadership. Fritz Henderson was upbeat in spite of GM's third quarter loss. The car maker's CEO emphasized that a corner has been turned.
We don't really see it now. We're seeing signs of, I won't call it the recovery, but certainly signs of stability and stabilization. But second, the factors that are necessary in order for things to begin to recuperate.
The former number one took some drastic measures to get even this far. 34,000 jobs have been axed. But now that it's faring better, GM aims to pay back government bailout money owed to Canada and the U.S. 500 million euros has already been repaid to Germany.
In order to run as a global company, you got to have some ability to support your international operations. Opel, for example, the repayment of the bridge loan, which is occurring this month, a part of it will be funded from Europe, but a reasonably large part will be funded here from the U.S.
Henderson gave little news on exactly what Detroit plans to do with its European unit, Opel. So far, a €3 billion restructuring plan is on the table, but industry analysts warn that more will be needed if Opel is to survive.
Car sales in Europe rose sharply last month, due mostly to scrapping programs in various countries. The European Auto Industry Association says new registrations climbed 11% in October, with sales especially strong in Western Europe. Sales in Germany were up a whopping 24% over the same month last year, but they're expecting to fall in the coming months as government-funded cash for clunkers programs draw to a close. European stocks got off to a firm start this week, hitting 13-month closing highs on Monday. In Frankfurt, the DAX index closed over 2% higher at 58.04. The Eurostoxx 50 index of leading Eurozone blue chips closed 1.5% higher at 29.26. And in New York, the Dow Industrial closed 1.3% up at 10,406. The head of the International Monetary Fund has called for China to allow its currency to gain in value. The yuan renminbi has remained frozen against the dollar for the past year. Analysts say that Chinese exports will need to maintain their steady upturn, though, if the Chinese currency is to have enough room to climb.
Whether it be toys, clothing, or computers, it's a safe bet they were made in China. The country is an export world leader, and it's not just because of the low labor costs in this roaring Asian economy. Its currency, the renminbi, is also considered relatively undervalued, and that makes Chinese goods cheaper on global markets. Beginning in 2005, Beijing allowed the renminbi to appreciate by 20% against the dollar. But that climb came to a halt last year because China didn't want to make its exports more expensive.
The renminbi, among other Asian currencies, is today undervalued. And that if we want a more balanced economy, and that's the point I mentioned at the beginning of my introductory remarks, we need to have all these and the value currency appreciated.
But Beijing shows no sign of budging on its currency. For the moment, the renminbi looks set to stay put.
European aerospace giant EADS reported its first quarterly loss in 2 years on Monday. EADS says it lost 87 million euros last quarter due to the weaker dollar. Sales were also down 2% year-on-year at 9.5 billion euros. However, shares in EADS rose 4.5% as investors believe its overall business prospects are improving.
The Airbus A380 at the Dubai Air Show. At this event, the massive jumbo jet is a sought-after product. Even before the start of the air show, the European aerospace manufacturer had already won a contract to build 2 more of these. Airbus also got orders for 10 A320s and 12 long-haul aircraft, the A350. Airbus has already sold more than 500 A350s, but the company's CEO is still cautious about the future.
But I share the assumption that SA-10 and 11 will still be difficult years. Nevertheless, I'm optimistic that we get through this together with our partners, the airlines. What is worth particularly mentioning, we're in the growth industry.
The figures match this claim too. The recent orders for Airbus planes are worth some 3 billion euros in total.
Back to you, Heather. Thanks, Ariana. Well, Italian author Roberto Saviano has been awarded a German Booksellers Prize for Intellectual Courage for his writings about the Italian mafia. Saviano is probably best known for his novel Gomorrah, an expose on the mafia, which was also made into an award-winning film. Speaking in Munich, Saviano said the economic recession had boosted organized crime and called on the EU to cooperate more closely in fighting gangs.
Italian journalist Roberto Saviano talks about things many Italians don't dare mention: the truth about the mafia, their power, and their brutality. The young Italian author's second book deals with just these truths. His daring fictional work, The Opposite of Death, has now helped earn him the Geschwister Scholl Prize.
The Geschwister Scholl and the White Rose mean a lot to me. These young people who believed in the power of the word and were murdered because they wrote flyers. I find it truly touching to be honored in their name.
This distinction has gone to a man who has risked his life to write about the mafia. Saviano's public war started 3 years ago with his debut novel, Gomorrah. The book sold millions of copies and put him on the mafia's hit list. But still, he continues